So, welcome back to the Coach's Desk, everyone. Thanks very much for tuning in. We're here with another episode from Trackside, and we'll be talking to 2013 World Championship representative Danielle Dowie. Yes, we'll be having a conversation with her just so that you could understand who she is, where she's coming from, and where she's actually at this moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to put your hands together and welcome on the coach's desk for the first time, Danielle Dowie. All right. So, Miss Dowie, welcome to the coach's desk.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for that um, warm introduction. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man. And how are you doing at this present time?
I'm doing well. I a little winded. Just came from a little morning shakeout. So
Okay.
yes, but as you can see, I'm in a good mood. So I'm excited to be here.
All right. Awesome. So we just want to go right into it, Danielle. Basically, we want to allow the audience to know just who you are. Um, so, again, could you just introduce yourself for the audience out there?
Well, since this is track and field, so I'm Danielle Dowie, former national 400-meter hurdler, 2009 silver medalist from World Youth, and 2013 World Championship rep. So I competed um, at Champs 400 for hurdles for Titchfield and Wilmer's Girls School. And I represented the University of Texas, Texas Longhorns in the US, competed for them, mostly did the 400 hurdles. Uh, Again, that's my pet event. And been competing for Jamaica since I was, 16, 17 years old.
All right, great, awesome. So now the people know who Daniel is, but let's delve a little bit deeper into it in terms of your early years. You said that you went to Wilmer's, but talk to us about the inspiration to go into track and field. Was it your coach? Was it family, heritage or something of the sort?
Well, I mean, I, as far as I can remember, barefoot on the streets of Anchovy in Port Antonio, everywhere I was going, sprinting there, shot it back to forward, everywhere. I was a tomboy. I grew up running through the backyard, climbing every tree possible. And I was always racing people older than me and always challenging people to races. And that spilled over into school culture, sports day culture, always winning up sports day. And during the latter part of primary school at Port Antonio Primary, I decided that, I think I'm going to take this running thing seriously. And when I go to high school, I want to join the track team. That was one of the few things that I was sure about going to high school. I mean, GSAT culture, everybody wants to go to the best school, and I did. I got my first choice. I went to Titchfield High School, passed my GSAT, and I knew that track and field was on the agenda. And the first thing I went there, I found the track team, and I started to train with them. But the thing is, funny enough, I was at the time 7-day Adventist, and so I didn't get to compete for the first 2 years of high school. I only competed at two meets, and it was because those two meets were during the week. Most of the track meets are on Saturdays, so I trained for basically a whole 2 years, 2.5 years really, and got to compete at only like two meets. So that was the start of it, and of course, I remember watching Bridget Foster and Navleen Williams Mills and those girls or ladies on TV at the Commonwealth Games and different championships. And I remember when I saw Bridget going over the hurdles, I was like, I'm attracted to those barriers. And I think when I saw and in 2009, when I saw Melanie Walker got that gold medal in Beijing, that was when I said, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Okay, that's great. But how did that move happen for you switching from Titchfield to Wolmer's?
Well, my coach, Mr. Dunstan, was also um, he was retiring, and the school did not at the time have a track and field program, and there was not really any talks about getting a coach or anything like that. So, my coach was like, you need to leave, and it just so happened that I was performing really well, and a lot of schools were interested in recruiting me. But I think word got out that I wasn't interested in leaving from country to go to country. So it was really just between St. Andrew High and Wilmer's Girls. Because I was like, I'm not gonna leave country and go to another country school. So I want to go to town. And
Yes.
so I did that. I decided that it was going to be between Andrews or Wilmer's, and I ended up going to Wilmer's.
Okay, great. So talk to us about that move to Wolmer's where you competed at champs, and what was it like? Any significant difference from being in the country and now you're in the town at Wolmer's?
Definitely. When I was at Titchfield, I would say that we didn't, at the time, even though the school had a reputation of participating in champs back in when like my mom went to school. But while I was there, we were not a champs school. And we didn't have a strong boys and girls champs culture. We did for Eastern champs, which is our thing for the Eastern schools, but we didn't have a beyond Eastern champs culture. And so when I first went to Wilmer's, everything was about champs. It was like countdown to champs, like, oh, we need points, and I'm like, okay. So I immediately wasn't as hyped about champs culture. I think I found it more fascinating when I was like watching the Homewood girls on TV with their crazy hairstyles and stuff. But it was also nice to experience it because I got to like get all Wilma's colored nails and get all fancy. Um, but I was more about competing and but different the main difference was the culture about champs, like the school march from Crossroads up to stadium. Like it was a big deal in Kingston. And so the culture and the vibes, and you go to champs and you have a whole section. When I went there, our support for Titril was us athletes cheering each other on. And I go to champs as a Wolmerian and I have a whole section of the stadium beating drums and making music and have their flags. So it was far more exciting.
And the famous woot woot sound, right?
All of that, yes.
All right. So immediately when you went to Wolmer's, did you go directly into the four hurdles, or you dabbled into other events before settling with that new coach in the hurdles?
Well, I when I went to Ulmos, I was doing 400-meter and long jump, and I used to love the long jump. And Mr. Carr, the coach at Ulmos at the time, he still is now. Mr. Carr said, "You know what? 400 and long jump are not compatible. You have to choose, and it's gonna be the 400." And I was heartbroken that I didn't get to do the long jump. And I remember asking him quite often, actually, sorry, quite often, like, can I try the four hurdles? And, he would always say no. And, I would always ask. And every chance I would get when the short sprint hurdlers are doing their drills, I would, sneak a turn over the hurdles and say, hey, yo, coach, look, I can do it. And so I was always trying to get him to just allow me to do the 400-meter hurdles. And he really just wanted me to focus on the 400. But I think it was the first time I made the national team was a Carifta team. My first year at Wilmer's, actually. It was like a month away from the Carifta trials, and I was like a clear third ranked in the 400 meters. Um, and it was going to be tough because I was like running at the time 55 seconds, and the two girls ahead of me were running 53 seconds. Actually, it was like Sherika Jackson and Sandre Farkison from Manchester, and so he was like, "All right, you can do the 400, the 300-meter hurdles." And so, with like a month to go, I started practicing for the hurdles. Showed up to my first track meet. I think it was the Youngsters Goldsmith, that KC track meet, Hurdles Fest. And I ran, got a qualifying time, and then I went to the trials and I won the trials, and then I went to the Carifta Games, um, and I won. I was my first medal there was a gold medal, and that was the start of my international career for Jamaica.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about after making that start in terms of your Jamaica career. What was it like? What was the feeling like? Did it spark buzz over there in Port Antonio or in Kingston?
Well, it did. A lot of people were a lot of people were excited. I got a lot of support. Um, a lot of people felt like, hey, I was a little, I shouldn't have left Titchfield, um, and lamented that, the, the top schools steal their athletes and stuff like that. But personally, it was I was more focused on getting to college and running good times and all of that, and it was just the start of something great for me. And after that, I had the World Junior Trials, but I was still quite young for a World Junior team. I got second at the trials, but um, uh, a faster athlete had a more senior athlete to me had a medical exemption, and they took her instead. I remember. But it was always, and the following year was really when I made a huge impact on the scene. Following year, I was number one in the world for youth, and for quite a while. And I went to the Carifta Games, and I ran I doubled. I was double silver medalist in the 400 hurdles and the flat four, and that was when calls. My phone was just ringing off. Overseas colleges trying to recruit me, but I was only 17 at the time, so they had to wait until I, finished sixth form because I was only in fifth form at the time. But that year was what really cemented it for me. I had a really impressive year, so much so that when I went to the World Youth, I didn't even sign up for the Pan Am Games, and Jamaica invited me to compete for them at the Pan Am Games, um, and I won a bronze medal there as well.
Awesome. So in terms of those calls that were coming in, what was the what you call it, icing on the cake that caused you to choose Texas?
Well, actually, Texas, easy call. That's where Melanie went. I was a huge Melaine fan. Still love Melaine. So you know, once I found out that's where my idol went, that was the icing on the cake. And then I found out that they had a rich history of quarter milers, and I was all about being a great 400 runner. And so once I found out that the same coach, that coach Melanie, Sonia Richards, Sandy Richards, all of them girls is still there and she wants to coach me, that was it. I didn't need any more. I think I ran into Melaine at the stadium, and I was like, "Hey, you know, talking to Texas, and what do you think about it?" And she's like, "Yeah, man, go on." So it was a done deal.
Okay, you know what? I want you to tell the audience, Danielle,
What you want
because
me to tell them?
many think that athletes can't balance academics and being athlete. So student athlete is a very difficult task. I
Mhm.
want you to share on how you handled the whole matter of being a student athlete.
Well, I was always a little, I was always a little bright spark. Um, my mom was a teacher, and from as far as I can remember, I was very active. So I did mention earlier that I was a tomboy. Half of the times when I was in the tree, there was a Julie mango tree across from my house that had a branch shaped like a bench, and I would just go up there with my book and just read. So I was very active, but I loved to read, and I, for the most part, was always in the top three of all my classes growing up from as long as I can remember. And I was on the junior quiz team. I represented Port Antonio Primary in quiz. So I was always pretty much a student first, um, who could just run fast. And so the same time when I was going up, both at Titchfield and Wilmer's girls, when I was at Titchfield, I would get called up for track and field accolades, and the school would cheer in devotion. I would get a lot of forward, and then shortly after that I would have to go back up to collect my academic award for placing top three in my year or something like that. So I was always, you know in that sphere. So I wouldn't say, um I think I know that's not the case for the average person, average athlete, but I was always very strong academically. And if you ask my principal, my Wilmer's principal, she would tell you that even when I left Wilmer's, I was, in a lot of my favorite subject areas. I was in the top three in the entire school. So I did really well academically. But I also loved I loved to read. So I would go home from training and read my biology book. So I was, low key a nerd in a sort of way. And I remember after fifth form, when I got 6 1s in CSEC and 2 2s, and then I said to my mom, like, all right, schoolwork done now, track time. And that was it. So after fifth form, I gave it to her. Got the ones. She was happy. Graduation, she was pleased. Got the scholarship, and I said, "All right, mommy, schoolwork done now. Track time." So I basically did the hard work. And then I gave after CSEC, I started focusing mostly on track and field.
All right, great. You know, another thing, you went to Texas, and I want you to walk us through that life in Texas, as well as tell us, because many persons believe that on the NCAA circuit, the athletes normally worked very hard, um, quote unquote, they burn them out, so to speak. So I want you to tell us about your experience and if you have ever encountered that argument of being burnt out while being in Texas.
While I'm there, or while I was there, um, no, I never thought of being burnt out. I heard that while I was in Jamaica and deciding whether or not I was going to train in Jamaica or train overseas. Um, but once you make up your mind about something, you look at the positives and ignore the negatives. And I don't think it was that big of a factor to me. Um, but having gone through the system and eventually towards the latter part, I started. Well, I would say even when I was in high school, I started to had injuries occur to me quite often. When I went to Texas, it was no different. I would get injured um, a good amount of times, and it took a lot to get my body fine tuned and ready to run. And towards the end of my career, I remember when I made the world championship team, my athletic trainer said to me, you know, don't go to the world champs. And I looked at her like she was crazy. Like, what do you mean don't go? And but I had shin splints so bad that, you know, she said, if you go, you won't be able to walk when you come back in September. And that was my third year, my junior year of college. And I went. I went to the World Championship. I didn't make it out of the first round. Um, but after, when I came back, um, so said, so done. I could barely walk. And my final year at college was half of the year was spent in the pool, because my shin splints were so severe that I wasn't able to walk or run or train for a while. So I was in the pool for a very long time. I had to endure some very intense treatment, uh, dry needling on my shins for several months. Um, in fact, the the medical guy who treated my shins, he was so excited. Like, he's never had a case that bad. Like, he was like up for the challenge, like really determined to get me back healthy. And we did it. We did it. I was able to run. And I ran some pretty good times my senior year. I was able to defend my conference title. I made it to nationals. And funny enough, my senior year was the only time I did not make the finals at nationals. I made the finals as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and my senior year, um, I wasn't able to do any speed work. But after that, I had a lot of injuries, and so when I came back to Jamaica to train at MVP, I kept having recurrent injuries, and I also had a hard time recovering from workouts. So it was kind of determined that I definitely suffered some burnout from the college system. But while I was in the system, even though I got injured so many times and so badly, it never crossed my mind that I was my body was just reacting to overwork. Um, but I guess looking back now, I could see where that came into play, um, in terms of burnout.
Okay, so all right, so now persons have a better understanding then. We're hearing it from someone who would have been there. Now, was it when you came back you made that world championship team?
No, I made the world championship while I was at Texas, my
Well, okay.
third year. So my
So,
second.
what was it feeling like to make a senior national team while still in college?
Um, if you could watch the race again, you would see that I was crying at the end of it. I was overcome with joy and tears, happy tears, because for me, I always knew that I had what it takes, but I was struggling to get out of my own head, and so I actually had the slowest time going into the final, and my coach was like, what the hell, you didn't do anything that we were practicing. And you know and I was kind of really in my head, like, coach Michelle Freeman. I was working with Michelle Freeman, former hurdler, sprint hurdler for Jamaica at the time, and she was like drilling me the day of the final through a hectic workout. And I was like, I was like, oh my God. Like normally I would be complaining, like, why is this workout so long, this warm up so long? And she's like, go and run over these hurdles. And she dragged me through a long warm up. And I was just like, it's whatever, I have the slowest time going into the finals, but I know what I'm capable. My 400s were so strong that year. I was splitting um, really fast times. And I was like, all right. So I remember lining up, lining up, and I got nervous again on that line. And when they did the introductions, um, I remember, you know, they didn't say anything when they got to my name. Like they gave a little thing, everybody's bio. And then when they got to my name, they were like, "Oh, that's just Danielle in the lane 8." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." So the gun went off, and I felt like I closed my eyes, but they were open, but I wasn't seeing anything. I just started running, and I was clearing the hurdles right, getting everything down, and I ran a really solid, even pace race, and I finished very strongly. That's one of the parts of the race that I spent a lot of time on, was the last three hurdles, and I really, muscle memory, like in practice, and I ran the race of my life, and it's still my personal best time. Um, I'm not hearing you.
Was that the 54.93, right?
Yes, 54.94. Yes. So it was a great feeling,
94,
and
yeah.
the best part about it was that I did something that I knew I could and struggled to do before, and I, you know, snap out of my own head, just wake up and got it done. So I was just really excited for that.
Okay, great. I mean, anybody get the opportunity to represent their country in any way, shape, or form, there has to be some amount of excitement. But after college, you came back home to MVP, and you were training. You made mention of you had a very difficult time in recovering after workout. You could see it also when you were competing on the track. It seems a little bit difficult. You mentioned that it could be as a result of the work that you'd have done on the collegiate circuit. Did you see at any point that you would have somehow recovered from these niggling injuries or nagging, if you want to call it, that persist for quite some time?
I would like to have believed that. Um, I was, I think I was just very patient for a very long time, and not just me, the coaching staff were quite patient, and they worked with me. They allowed me to, get medical treatment. And sometimes out of pocket, I would go overseas and try to get different help and try different supplements, rest, a mixture of things. And it was actually quite painful because people would come and say, "Oh, did you try this? Did you try that?" And I would just, burst out into tears, like, "Yes, I did. I tried it all." So it was quite frustrating. Um, it got to the point where I was even afraid to lift weights anymore because I didn't know what was causing injury. Um, I would do different strength programs and flexibility programs and pool workouts, and I would still, you know, have injuries just all over the place, and it was frustrating. And eventually, I, you know, I had some other issues medically, and I was like starting to like having to entertain the idea of stopping because it was becoming too much of a burden to keep setting myself up for the heartbreak of another, unsuccessful season or unfulfilling. Because I would train really well in the fall, and then at some point, when it starts to get to competition time, I would start getting hurt. And it was hard for me. It was hard for me because I was fully invested in track and field. I didn't want to even entertain the idea of a backup plan. So I was really just all about track and field. So it was heartbreaking for me, when I had to, like, start entertaining the idea of walking away from the sport in that capacity. And yeah,
You eventually did walk away
I did.
because some of these issues that you're having seems to decide not to go away.
Hmm.
Um, I can imagine how heart broken you were when you had to make that a big decision, you know. And but life goes on. And tell us now, what have you ventured into? I see that you're now an author. Yes, you're in that, dabbling into that now. I guess those days in the tree reading a biology book, they would have,
Hmm.
brought something to you, probably a hidden talent that you weren't aware that you have. And yeah, talk to us about that. Where are you now? What are you doing?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a hidden talent, because I used to write poetry in high school, and I I used to write really well, in high school as well, And when I was in college, and a little part of when I was back in Jamaica, I had a blog that called Hurdle Over Everything. And I used to write, on my blog, not too often though, but I had a blog, and every time I would publish an article, I would get lots of compliments on how they enjoyed reading it, and I should write more. And on Facebook, I write a lot of statuses and tell a lot of stories, and people always tell me that they love my stories, and that I should write more and all of that. So I always loved writing, and it was close to me in terms of being a passion of mine. And I always knew I wanted to publish a book. And I decided that I was back in, I think, 2020. I decided that I was going to start out with a children's book. and and so yes, I did publish my first children's book this year, and I'm getting ready to publish another one.
That's
So
awesome. Congrats, man.
yes, so I have it here with me so you can see it.
All right.
So
Yeah,
this
I
is
hope the fans are seeing it. Can you tell us the title?
Yes, of course. It's called Wagwan Jimmy, Welcome to the Jungle. It's a picture book about a Jamaican boy that goes to the jungle, and he is greeted by the animals, and they're using his Jamaican language. So they a Jamaican greeting. So they basically greet him, welcome into the jungle, and say, Yo, Wagwan Jimmy. And so it's just really a fun little picture book. And all my friends and families overseas who have gotten the book, their kids love it. Locally, when I'm walking in Port Antonio, parents are saying, same just stop reading book. Like, their kids love it. Boys and girls, they're fascinated because it's a bilingual book, so it has patois and English in it. So the kids are able to read it in Jamaican and read it in English, and they absolutely love it.
Awesome. And is that the only thing that you have ventured into post track and field?
No, I have done some commentary. I do sports analysis, from time to time, whenever they have local meets and some international meets. And I Also, I'm teaching at a high school here in Port Antonio at the moment. So I always wanted to teach. My mom, who unfortunately she passed away last January, my mom was a teacher of 35 plus years. And when I moved back to Port Antonio in 2020, you know, I the coach, the track and field coach from the school invited me to come, work with them. And so I took up the offer because I always wanted to have classroom experience. And so here I am going into my third year there. Um, and so it's been an exciting journey, and I tell a lot of stories about what happened in class with my students on Facebook as well. So it's definitely a rewarding experience.
Yes, man. And first and foremost, accept condolences from the coach's desk for the loss of your mom.
Thank
And
you.
definitely, I believe that you being in the classroom now, you'll ensure that her legacy lives on. Yes, you know, I actually enjoy reading those stories, to be honest. They are fascinating. Honestly, they are fascinating. And have you ever thought of venturing into coaching per se?
I have, but I think it is, you know, I think it's too much of a commitment for me, um, because I would have to live at the track. Um, I think I'm really, I think we don't get to appreciate um, the role coaches play enough. But to have a really good coach that is up at night planning your workout and early at morning there at the track before you're setting up the cones and getting ready for you to come and do your thing. It's a very intimate and relationship, and it requires a lot of commitment. And after being in it for so many years and training at such an intense level, I think I just want to rest. But I really get drawn to it. So every time I'm at training by the school, once I get to the track, and I'm like, you have to come fix that. Like, let's go. So I'm very much addicted to the sport. So I have to stay away because I started helping out. Um, and I told them I was like only available for, maybe 2 days out of the week. And before you know it, every day I'm down there and, getting more and more invested. And it takes a lot, and I didn't want to go down that route, not because I don't love it. It's just that I don't want to go off into that type of commitment at this time.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to be putting you on the spot now, Daniel. Eugene World Championship is coming up. All right. Your event, your pet event. Let me start out. Who do you think has the best chance of winning that event? Femke Ball or the world record holder, Sydney?
Well, I think Sydney has answered that question herself. She broke her own world record at the trials. I'm more interested in finding out whether Dalila, who skipped the trials because she has um the bye, because
Hamstring.
she's the defending champion,
Mm-hmm.
Dalila Mohammed. I'm more interested to see if she's gonna be able to, you know, try a thing and give Sydney another run for her money and actually defend her title, whether or not she breaks the world record or not. But and also I'm interested to see. Well, I'm excited to see Rochelle Clayton and Janive and the Jamaican ladies Cheyenne get into the 53 and really are right there. So we have a really good opportunity for more than one Jamaican woman to be in the final. And so I'm excited for that as well. And because of how well um, the ladies are performing, it's easy for them to, end up being a part of that history, possibly another world record race. So
Yes,
it's an
definitely.
definitely, and it's so fun to watch. I love to see good technique, the rhythm running in between the hurdles, and so at that level with those times, everybody is getting it right. There's no room for mistakes, or else you're out. And so it takes a lot of focus. And it's something that, behind the scenes as a fan, people don't think about. But I mean, just one glance away or one gaze away, one thought away, and those ladies could crumble. And for them to go out there round after round and get it right, that's takes a lot of focus that sometimes we don't get to appreciate.
That's true. That's true. And incidentally, uh, Rochelle Clayton a few days ago ran a 53.90, a season best. So she's rounding down pretty nicely. So we're expecting her to stay on that trajectory. When you look at the women's 100 meters and 200 meters, Sherika Jackson, she gave it her all at the trials. What's your pick going into the championship?
Wow, my pick, you know, I think the 100-meter is the hardest one to call. Um, I think it can be anybody's game. And when I say anybody, I mean between the three Jamaican ladies. I expect the gold to come from a Jamaican,
Yes,
no doubt. Um, I still think that it's possible that they can get one, two, three. I think it's um, less likely this year than before, but I think it's possible. Um, I'm not gonna say. I will say this. It's hard to call. Even though Shelly has the fastest time going in at 10:06 consistently, um, Sharika looks good. I think if Sharika is able to get like a really solid start, she could surprise a lot of people. Elaine Thompson, I'm not as confident that we're gonna see Elaine lounge off into a 10-5 like she did last year, but I feel that with the with how competitively that she's been competing, I think that she may be able to muster up something special or something faster than what she's been doing, and I don't know how fast that would be. So it's really for that one. I'm gonna sit that one out and just watch and see. But for the 200, I'm betting all my money on Sharika.
all right, that one was easy. All right. On the men's side, do you think we can medal in that blue ribbon event?
uh well, I would say definitely. Even though the Americans, well, it's going to be in America. So I think the Americans have shown within the last couple of international meets that, you know, the ones in the 100-meter, that they are a little shaky when it comes on to big performances. I think that um, I wouldn't be surprised, even though they have some of the guys with the fastest times going in. Um, we might see one or two of them get on the podium. Um, but I like where Johan and Oblique are positioned. I'd hope that um, I'd hope that they would be able to get find a way to be on the podium. But I don't have a strong sense of that event in terms of feeling like, yes, I feel like Oblique or Johan is going to do something special. I don't really have that energy. I think I'm just watching like everybody else for the for the male 100. Um, you know, I think that one is not so sure despite the different fast times that we see, because quite a few of the guys have run 9.8 something. So it's really just who is able to stay relaxed and get the job done. and who wants it more, as cliche as it sounds.
All right. 4x1. Women, they say that we have the quartet to break the world record. Do you think that is going to be possible this year on a fast
Um,
Eugene track?
Definitely. Last year I believe we had the team to break it. Um, the exchanges, the baton exchanges last year were not perfect. It was a disaster actually for the first leg, first exchange. So I think even though we may not feel that the times from each runners are as fast, I think that we still have a team that can break it. The chemistry, if they're able to really get the baton around, um, I think we still can see a world record time.
All right. So, is there any event that you're looking particular for, towards in terms of this world championship? I guess it's the 100 meters, right? The men.
Definitely. I think I'm really waiting to see how the 100 plays out. And thankfully, I won't have to wait too long because it's what on the first or second or third night. So I won't have to wait too long. So I get to see that, and and yeah, I think I'm okay with just watching everything. I'm not too excited to see a particular event. I'm just looking forward to enjoy the entire championship. But in terms of the one that's most on my mind is definitely that women's 100 meters.
All right, certain. All right, Daniel, I think we would have reached to the end of this fascinating interview. Was a very, very interesting conversation. Learned a lot in terms of where you're coming from and where you are now. Definitely, the fans out there will recognize that, you know, this is Danielle. I've not heard about her in a while, and oh, just to understand where she is. So this is one of the reasons why we do this program. We want to allow, because if we check the archives, fine athletes like yourself possibly wouldn't have done an interview of this length. You understand? So we want to put you out there definitely, whether you're a footballer or a track athlete or whichever sport. So that's the reason for this program. So I'm happy that you were able to take up this opportunity to be here, so that the fans of Danielle Dowie could understand where she's at the moment. So before we go, before we close out the show, Danielle, is there any final words or thoughts that you'd like to share? And you could also big up some people out there.
Well, I would just like to say thank you for giving me this platform and opportunity, and not just to me, as you said, to other athletes from different sports. I think that's a very cool thing that you're doing, giving us the platform to share our stories and kind of a where are they now vibes. So I think that's cool. So thank you for that. Thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate it. And just hopefully we can catch up again in the future. Right now I'm committed to my writing career, and I've having published my first book, getting ready to publish another children's book, and taking my time going into that direction. But um, just want to say thank you to everybody who is watching, who still support me, who still remember me, and supported me when I was competing. Thanks for all the support, and yeah.
All right, and before you go, you have to tell the audience where they can find that book with Jimmy. And when will you be releasing the? Is there a release date for the of the sequel, so to speak, of your book writing?
Well, it wouldn't be the sequel, not just yet. So Jimmy is the first of a series, but the second book for this series is not yet ready. The book that's coming up, tentatively July 31st. That book is a completely different book, and but it's still geared towards children. So this book, Wagwan Jimmy, you can find it on Amazon, and locally at the moment it was available at Fontana, but those books are out, and the next shipment arrives in another week or so. So once I get those, I'll get them in more stores, and you can contact me directly. I don't know if I should share my number. But yes, let me share my number, 506-2980. So they can contact me directly for now, until I sort out the different stores. But it's available on Amazon and on my website, dannydowpublishing.com. So they can find it quite easy, and get a copy or two. And if you want, if you're in Jamaica, if you're local, you can get signed copies from yours truly. Um, so you can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. Just type in my name, Danielle Dowie, and you'll see my page come up. I'm pretty active on social media, so I'll respond quickly. And you can get your copy for you and your kids, or your niece and your nephew, and all of that good stuff. So
All right,
thanks.
all right. Congratulations again on being an author. All right. So thanks again, Daniel, for being here on the coaches desk. It was indeed a privilege for us to have you. We reach out to a lot of athletes, and not very often persons will take up the opportunity. So we definitely appreciate you being here. So people, thanks very much for tuning in. We also appreciate you for taking the time out to listen her story and listen us talk on this platform. Definitely we appreciate you as well. So until next time, stay safe. Peace out.